In this episode, we shall explore the initial stages of the Roman invasion of Britain, which lay the foundations for the development of the British civilization. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, commonly referred to as Caligula. Many call him a mad emperor, yet he possessed wisdom no others could understand. His attack on the sea is the earliest known admission that Britannia rules the waves, and a perceptive recognition of the true enemy that faces continental dictators trying to invade this noble land. He may have celebrated his triumph, but the English Channel kept us free. Tiberius Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, who henceforth shall be referred to simply as Claudius. Some people claim that Claudius was the emperor to finally conquer Britain, but this is a papist lie. Britain was never conquered. It occasionally chose to change management and refine itself into a purer form of Anglo. Claudius saw the advances made by the Catuvellani, and the threat of a united England was too great for the Roman Empire to face, and as such, he decided it was time to try and strangle baby Britannia in the cradle. He launched an invasion in 43 AD, starting in the weakest point of entry, the southeast. Southern puffs. Him, indeed. Some things never change. The story of the sons of King Cunobeline are central to the understanding of Rome's invasion. His two sons, Caratacus and Togodumnus, would lead the Catuvellani against the invading Roman horde. They held different philosophies regarding the Roman threat. Caratacus valued the struggle for sovereignty and freedom until death, whilst Togodumnus argued for a more pragmatic approach towards the Romans, using their might to first unify Britain as a province and later seek freedom together. Both had their merits, and ultimately both took a stand against the Romans on the battlefield, side by side as brothers and chiefs. They fought and lost two major battles in 43 AD, those being of the rivers Medway and Thames, and thus lost control of the southeast. Togodumnus, choosing not to sway his brother from the path he had chosen, took the noble way out and died on the battlefield. Or so Dio claims, but his story may not be over. All the Roman hordes knew was breeding and warring, which despite seeming based, meant that the flickering light of enlightenment and liberty was temporarily snuffed out. The Roman general Gaeta was awarded a triumph for managing to survive an encounter with the British. The Romans established Camulodunum as a center for their further expansion into Britain. Most tribes surrendered in fear of Claudius's war elephants, mistaking them for Roman women and refusing to fight them out of their own honor. Caratacus, however, continued in the face of unwinnable odds. For 10 years, he grumbled against the European oppressor. his fierce resistance only came to an end when he was defeated in 51 AD, fighting in the Ordovician lands, modern Central Wales. There his wife and daughter were captured by the Romans. Being freed of his feminine fetters, he was prepared to launch a devastating counterattack to save his family from a fate worse than death. But in his attempts to rescue a British woman, he was betrayed by one of the very same. Having fled to Yorkshire, he refused the salacious widower hunter, queen of the Brigantes, Cartimandua, who as a Roman vassal forever lusted for chatterly approval. She eventually dethroned her cuck husband and made his armor-bearer king. Caratacus, though defeated on the battlefield, maintained his dignity in the face of his imminent execution in Rome, and gave a speech to their Senate. If the degree of my nobility and fortune had been matched by moderation in success, I would have come to this city as a friend rather than a captive. Nor would you have disdained to receive with a treaty of peace, one sprung from brilliant ancestors and commanding a great many nations. But my present lot, disfiguring as it is for me, is magnificent for you. I had horses, men, arms, and wealth. What wonder if I was unwilling to lose them? If you wish to command everyone, does it really follow that everyone should accept your slavery? If I were now being handed over as one who had surrendered immediately, neither my fortune nor your glory would have achieved brilliance. It is also true that in my case any reprisal will be followed by oblivion. On the other hand, if you preserve me safe and sound, I shall be an eternal example of your clemency. His words so moved the emperor that he was spared and allowed to live the rest of his life in their city. Caratacus was a demonstration of the British dominion over both military affairs and rhetorical, intellectual pursuits, having knowledge and capability in all areas. Such stubbornness as recorded by Tacitus can be seen as the inception of the British stiff upper lip, when harried on all sides by the continental Hun and womanly guile. These attributes marked the beginnings of the heroic British gentleman, which would characterize the male ideal in later ages. He came to realize the truth his brother had tried to let him know, that Britain was in its nascency and not prepared to take on the Roman brute. He spent the rest of his days in Rome, learning of their avarice and trying to study the secrets of how to run a successful empire without succumbing to it. Regrettably, he died before finishing his work. However, the Silures, led by the Druids of Chaos, resisted Ostorius and the inevitable Roman takeover. Ostorius Scapula dies in 52 AD from being too fed up with the tribes and this holy land. Say what you like about them, they know leave means leave. They went on to defeat Gaius Manlius Valence's legion, but the relentless waves of Roman forces, then led by Aulus Didius Gallus, eventually pacified them by 57 AD with a mixture of killing and construction of infrastructure, a combination that oft tempts the British soul. The Roman brute, so often behaving in a way unbecoming of their own teachings and philosophy, which would later inspire Britain, lashed out against the Welsh tribes in an impious rage. In 60 AD, the Druid island of Anglesey was marched on by Paulinus, who was met by an army of druids and brand-wielding women. The raw religious fervour on show paralyzed the Roman soldiers where they stood, in awe as they witnessed the power of divine intervention. Although they were a pagan people, the virtue they displayed and future they fought for allowed for such a limited display. This display of faith in the face of certain death allowed for their tribes to be spared for a little while longer, as the Romans were then dragged elsewhere by what their deaths had summoned. They say when Rome invaded Britain, Britain conquered Rome. Britain had many things to learn from Rome as she developed, but it would one day surpass her teacher. In the next episode we shall explore a certain rebellious lass, and the Roman expansion into the north of these isles. Tally-ho!